Oh no!
Proclamations. So here we go. Let's quote the word about who we are. I am born of love.
I am born of love.
I walk in love.
I walk in love.
The joy of the Lord is my strength.
The joy of the Lord is my strength.
I have the peace of Jesus,
I have the peace of Jesus,
which passes understanding.
which passes understanding.
I am long suffering,
I am long suffering,
and patience has her perfect work in my life.
and patience has her perfect work in my life.
I am perfect and entire, wanting nothing.
I am perfect and entire, wanting nothing.
I am gentle and kind.
I am gentle and kind.
God's goodness is working in me.
God's goodness is working in me.
I am faithful and can be depended upon.
I am faithful and can be depended upon.
I am meek and have humbled myself to the Word of God.
I am meek and have humbled myself to the Word of God.
Its authority is first place in my life.
Its authority is first place in my life.
I am temperate in all things.
I am temperate in all things.
God's grace gives me self-control.
God's grace gives me self-control.
The greater one who lives in me
The greater one who lives in me
has control of me
has control of me
because I walk in love,
because I walk in love.
and I am His to command.
And I am His to command.
All right, here we go. We gonna dig into some stuff. We've got a lot of ground. I don't know how long this is gonna take. I'm just gonna be real because it's a lot to cover. I am probably gonna be bouncing. Just let y'all know in translations, I've got my Amplified, I've got my King James, and I've got my Young's Literal. So we're gonna be hopefully having some discussion today. So in Matthew chapter 19, I think it's interesting because his last group, he was just telling them the importance of not getting offended, the importance of forgiveness. We've got to understand that the old covenant was a birthright covenant. You were born into the covenant by being a Jew, basically, okay? There was a set of guidelines for the Jewish people. There was a set of rules for the Jewish people, but it didn't deal with the heart of the man at all. You were born a Jew. This is what Jews do, okay? So keep that in mind with who Jesus is talking to, because at this point he is speaking to people that are under that covenant. So people who have always had a set of rules that this is just how we do life and this is what makes us better than everybody else. And now he's trying to deal with the heart behind those actions. So here we go. Now when Jesus had finished saying these things, he left Galilee and went into the part of Judea that is beyond the Jordan. And large crowds followed him, and he healed them there. Notice the sick came to Jesus and he healed them there. You know, I know Matt was saying about, we don't turn the sick away. That's part of our new covenant. We lay hands on the sick and they recover. The elders of the church, we come forward, we're going to pray, we're going to expect results. It's what we do. This is part of being deliverance. This is part of walking out the new covenant as believers. And Pharisees came to Jesus testing him and asking, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? Okay. This is taken from Deuteronomy, but we'll go there in a minute. I believe it's Deuteronomy chapter 14 where you hear the law of divorcing your wife. And it's basically, if any uncleanness be found in her is the word that's used. And you had two trains of thought with this. You had followers of Rabbi Shammai and Rabbi Hillel. And I believe Shammai was the stricter of the two. And his train of thought was the only way that you divorce your wife is for adultery, is for a sexual impurity. Hillel was a little more lenient. Basically, if your wife displeased you, so if she burnt your toast, you had grounds to divorce her. And at that time, you got to understand, this is the big deal. This is the problem. The Jewish people had a very high opinion of marriage. So much so that if a man was beyond the age of 20 and not married, it was a shame. It was a shame because he was not doing his duty, because he was supposed to multiply and make more children. He was denying his purpose as a man and as a Jew if he was beyond the age of 20 and not married. So they had a very high opinion of marriage, but women were just property to be bought. They didn't have a high opinion of women at all. So, do you see where a big problem is about to come into play? If you have a high opinion of marriage, well, I gotta get married. But, you know, a woman ain't nothing but a new coat. A woman ain't nothing but a cow, a goat, anything else that I can buy and possess. We're gonna have issues. Okay, so this is where we're going. So now the Pharisees are going to trap him. Let's find out if he's with Shemaiah or if he's with Hillel, and let's find fault. Let's find fault. Let's go back to our tradition, our doctrine, because again, this was doctrine. This was interpretation of Moses' law. Where did Jesus take them? Let's see. He replied, this is Jesus. Have you never read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female? It doesn't sound like he's quoting Shemaiah or Hillel. He's not going with man's opinion. He's not going into doctrine. He's going back to the Word. Well, what did God originally institute? And he said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined inseparably to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So marriage, like the Sabbath, predates the law. You know, Adam and Eve, I guess they could have divorced, but it wouldn't have done them any good because who else was there? They had to learn to work it out. They had to learn to become one. They were both in right standing with God because at that time sin had not come into the world. Okay? So they were in a whole different covenant than Moses would put by Moses' time. Okay? Because the garden state predates the old covenant. The old covenant came about after the garden state. Okay? The new covenant puts us back in the standing that Adam was back in the garden. That's important to understand. Understand the audience that Jesus is speaking to. He's not speaking to the church that would come after Pentecost, because that was a whole different group of people, a whole different set of heart conditions, a whole different set of rules. So we need to understand Jesus operated under the old covenant. He was ushering in a new covenant. He was trying to prepare his people for a new covenant, and there would be some that would hear it and some that wouldn't. So keep that in mind as we're reading this, because this is where a lot of people get doctrinated, I guess you could say. Turn the page. So they are no did I get it? Yeah. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Okay, again, this is back to you know how God created marriage, what it was supposed to be. Now, that one flesh, a lot of people say, okay, well that's just the sexual act. That's one very small component of it. Flesh was also used to describe life. So they become one life together. Okay? So that's every area of life. If I'm going to have one life with my husband, and he's going to have one life with me, we have to see each other at equal standing, don't we?
They completed each other.
They completed each other. We have to value each other. So Jesus was even tackling a bigger issue with the culture at large, because if you don't have any opinion of your wife, how are you going to share your life with her, every area of it? So he was advocating even at that moment that women have value and purpose, even though we're created different and we fulfill different roles. It's okay. It's okay. You know, I was talking with Lord, I've probably talked with several men about this, how God designed us to fulfill different roles, and it is okay. Me and Matt were talking about when Katie was a baby, and oh my goodness, babies, they just cry, man. My pediatrician told me I just had a puker. That was the official. I was like, is this normal? She's like, yeah, some kids just puke. And I had one that did that. Just no reason. She just bleh, there it was. She'd work herself up, there it was. And she didn't go to bed willingly. Most babies don't. They fight it, they cry, they do whatever. And a woman, though yes, we can reach our snapping points, we tend to have a little better ability to go through that area of life than a man does. A man typically cannot handle the screaming baby, the puking baby, the pooping baby, the feeding baby in the way that a woman does. Just like there's areas in a man's life that a woman doesn't handle well, okay? It's not that one is greater than the other, it's that we're different and we complete each other to the expression of life. I mean, you need kids to take and go further, so it takes a man and a woman for that. We are each uniquely gifted. Are there some that can handle it? Yes, I suppose there are. There's always exceptions. But in general, once Katie would start sounding off, Matt could only hang so long. Be holding the baby, and I remember Daddy would say, nope, a man isn't designed to carry weight like this. I can't hold her as long as you can. Now, Daddy was twice my size. But he couldn't hold the toddler as long as I could.
You got hips.
Why? Because the way God built a woman. Because the way God designed her. Because you know what? That's one of the roles she carries. She's the life giver. Hey, I nurtured this thing. I give it life. You know what? The husband teaches her not to be afraid, to go out and do whatever, to conquer. I'm going to be careful, put a helmet on. Stop, Mama. You're going to make them into sissies. It's a balance that needs to happen. So I think that's funny. God created us for different purposes, and that's the shared life. We bring complement to each other. But if we don't see each other as valuable, if we don't see each other as what God has created us to be, it's never going to work. It's never going to work. And so I see Jesus even now trying to tell them, look, I know how it is. I know the culture. I know the standard, what we view women as. But it's kind of wrong. Let's go back to the garden. Let's go back to the garden. That's just my little side note there. Let's see. The Pharisees said to him, this is where they're going to come in, why then did Moses command us to give her a certificate of divorce and send her away? Okay, it's Deuteronomy 24. 24, not 14. 24, 1 through 4, if you want to read the whole deal there about the divorcing. Basically, again, with the high opinion of marriage and the low opinion of women, men would marry a wife, and then they'd find somebody else who struck their fancy a little more. Well, she looks pretty. I'd rather have that one. Well, that one, I like that one better. Moses. You mean I gotta keep this one I gotta work this out? No. Moses, fine. Because your heart is hardened. Because you don't want it in your heart to do what's right. Here. Let's get this bill of divorcement. And it was really more for the woman than for the man. Because if he had just put her away, if he was just this way or that way, she would have lived her life alone, in shame, whatever. But this was a way for her to be able to maybe get a family somewhere else. Maybe it was a grace there. But it was wrong. It was still wrong. These are people born into the old covenant. He said, because your hearts were hard and stubborn, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, it has not been this way. Permitted. It was allowed. It was not commanded. It was not the way it should have been, but it was allowed. I say say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another woman commits adultery. And this is where you go down a rabbit trail. Because the Greek word is porneia. P-O-R-N-E-I-A. Porneia. Does it sound familiar to something in our English language? Because it's the root word of pornography. So basically, this has a wide meaning, and some say that it is specifically sexual immorality as far as the act. It is specifically playing the harlot. It's specifically doing this. But it's a wider term that could even mean unlawful lust. So Jesus is saying that these are grounds. This is you have defiled. You have transgressed. So that gives a whole lot broader term to the reasons for divorce under the Old Covenant. And a lot of churches that I've been a part of use this for grounds to say that, it didn't matter if a husband did this or a wife did whatever to their spouse, that if you left them, you was going to go to hell. Well, first off, this ain't talking to the new church. This is talking to people under the Old Covenant. Secondly, it gives you a very tight rope to walk to maintain your marriage in legal grounds, doesn't it? That's just what I'm reading here. But go back and do the research for yourself. Find out what it really means. Dig. So here we go. The disciples said to Jesus, if the relationship of a man with his wife is like this, it's better not to marry. Jesus, I don't see how everybody can do this. You mean to tell me that if I've done this, I've transgressed? You mean to tell me if I find a better one, I can't just leave because I want to? Jesus, I don't know who all can do this. Well, obviously Peter could, but that's a whole nother story. But see, this is what had been put on them, that marriage was their duty, that they needed to be married by the time, 20. Once you better get married, son. You better start making kids and procreating and doing all this. But there was no opinion of women whatsoever. So now all of a sudden, you mean this thing that I don't value, I have to commit myself to her? This is going to be a hard thing. See, because the law dealt with the outward actions alone, but the new covenant is going to deal with the heart, which affects the outward actions. I want y'all to understand, it's not that he did away with the law, he fulfilled the law. I can't think of one of the 10 commandments that we would have a problem following as a Christian. Because why? Because those actions are born from our heart condition. Okay? So here we go. So it's better not to marry. 11. But he said to them, not all men can accept this statement, but only those to whom the capacity to receive it has been given. It's not for everybody to think it's not good to marry. For most people, we have a desire within us for companionship, a desire within us for that relationship. It's God-given from the beginning. It's not good that man should be alone. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. It's there from the beginning to the end. God the Father relates to us as a father, but Jesus is our bridegroom. So the opinion, the elevation of the marriage covenant is still there. So don't get confused. This saying ain't for everybody. For there are some eunuchs who have been born that way from their mother's womb, making them incapable of consummating a marriage. And there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men for royal service. And there are eunuchs who have made themselves so for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. He who is able to accept this let Him accept it. There are some people who totally set their life apart for God, that they don't take on a family, they don't take on a marriage. Why? Because they are completely dedicating themselves to the work of the Lord. And that's fine. Let them do it. Is it for everybody? No. Are we commanded to do it? No. Not everybody can. If you can, more power to you. I can't imagine life without my family. I love my family.
You know, you see in certain organizations, I'll put it like that, where men took that vow.
Yep.
And then abused that vow.
Oh yeah.
And was exposed. You know, the Lord said that be sure your sins will find you out. You know, you're not going to hide your sins. Somebody always knows.
Well, I believe I know the organization you're referring to.
But my thought...
They were not celibate. They just didn't marry.
I believe that stems from a pride that they took that vow. And then because of pride, that when they couldn't keep it, it led them into other things.
Oh yeah.
When the thing would have been to have got on their faces probably before God and said, God, I am sorry. You know, I need to marry.
That's it.
But instead, there goes that shame. Pride leads to destruction.
Yep.
You know, and that's one thing that I think that, you know, like the Lord is showing.
Yeah.
The old covenant. You know, that was our schoolmaster.
Yep.
That was to teach us about sin.
Yes.
There was some people who kept those laws, y'all. They did it. They walked perfect in their generation.
But they also had a heart for it too.
But God knew their heart.
There it is.
You know, when they missed it, they did their sacrifices.
They repented.
And they repented to the best of their ability. Now, they did not have the Holy Spirit inside of them. So think about how tough that
had to be.
That had to have been really tough.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, it all boils down to that heart condition. You know, we look at people today and we think that, we're quick to criticize, we're quick to judge, seeing what the outward, but we don't see the heart.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? And Jesus knows. This is what's so fascinating to me is God knows the end
from the beginning. Exactly.
Look here, none of us was born saved. How about that?
Nope.
We all had our uglies. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about y'all, but I've done some shameful things and things that God.
We all required the same sacrifice.
Exactly, but you know, God knows down the road if that person's going to give their heart to Him.
That's it.
And we should treat them in a manner to point to Him.
That's it.
Now, we get frustrated, and there's some people that will push your buttons. I don't know if y'all know that. And that's when you've really got to probably fast and go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and don't read nothing else for 2 months. And
get it in you. Get the standard.
You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
But the Jews, for the most part, now God had His remnant even right there.
Oh, yeah.
But they were hunting that loophole.
Yeah.
And you know, we all say, well, we wouldn't have done that, but y'all, would we have?
Yeah.
Would we have been like them?
That's right.
Because they had been raised to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's right. They had been raised to do that. And you know, if you want to know in the new covenant, Paul writes to the church in, is it 1 Corinthians, I believe? That's where we find the standard for the new covenant marriage. In the new covenant church, you had in the old covenant, people were automatically born into that covenant. They were automatically born there. They didn't, yeah, it's 1 Corinthians 7. They were automatically born there. So you had two people in the same covenant with God coming together in marriage. Let no man put that asunder. Okay? In the New Testament church, you have something new all of a sudden, because now you have Gentiles who have been shut out of the kingdom, and now you might have a saved husband and a heathen wife. Because why? Because they were married as Gentiles, but now the gospel has come to them, and now you've got houses divided, children of opposite covenant. And then there's some guidelines set out for marriage then. Okay, are they at peace with you? If they're at peace with you, then you stay, and maybe you can win them to the Lord. If they're not at peace with you, it's okay. It's okay, because you're in a new covenant. And I think it's very interesting, because at the end of this chapter, there's a little phrase in there that even Jesus was looking to that time. Now, I'm not saying looking forward as in, oh, goody, goody, but he was foreseeing that time when the new covenant would begin, because it's referenced. I picked that up in my study, and I was like, oh, well, I ain't never heard them talk about that when they talk about what Jesus said. But yeah, it gets to the end. He brings it back. He brings it back to the top. What was you going to say, Mama? Okay. All right, we're gonna kind of put a pin in it, because now something else started happening. In the middle of all this discussion, this deep stuff that really probably just was like sand spurs to them, because that's not what they wanted to hear. You know, basically you can't treat your wife like a car and trade her in for a newer model. Well, that's a problem. This is what they were doing. I mean, shoot. Burning toast is not grounds for divorce.
Well, I guess their next best option is they'd say, well, let's just have concubines. I mean, in the old covenant.
Just all the problems that Jesus just brings to their attention. Then children were brought to Jesus, that he might place his hands on them for a blessing and pray. But the disciples reprimanded them. Got on to those parents. Don't you bring those kids in here? Don't you do that? Don't you know we're talking? Don't you know we're teaching? Them kids are running around, they got their fingers up their nose, and they're wanting to touch everybody. Let me tell you something, all kids stick their fingers up their nose. If you don't know that, then you have been living in a cave. They do stuff like that. They're taken away from my time. What did Jesus say? But he said, leave the children alone, and do not forbid them from coming to me. For the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. They were just coming to Jesus. They just wanted to be around him. They didn't care what was being said, I'm right here with Jesus. I'm right here with him. He loves me. You know, was Jesus making little jokes with them at times? Probably. Was he making them smile? Was he putting his arm around them? Well, obviously he was touching them. He was touching them. That ministry of touch. Dirty faced. Probably stepped in, camel poo and everything else. Been working in the yard, been doing whatever. Pushing, shoving, whatever. But Jesus was right there laying hands on them. Loving them. Isn't that precious? Look at them. Got a dirt ring all over their face. Look at them. Oh my gosh, look at them. Screaming babies. All of it. Bring them on. Don't turn them away. Church can't turn people away like that. Bring them on. The kingdom is made of such as these. There's something for us to learn in the children coming to Jesus. You know what? Sometimes in life we get caught with our finger up our nose. Stupid trouble. Sometimes in life we get caught with dirty faces. Sometimes in life we get caught screaming because we dirtied our diaper. Come to Jesus. Let him touch you. Let him bless you. Let him love you. Now he might tell you, hold on, I gotta wipe this off because it's a little messy. Hold on. Put some of that mama spit on it, you know. Come to Jesus. The children, they weren't ashamed at their shortcomings. They weren't thinking so much of themselves that they needed those theological questions. They were just going to Jesus. And in that way, our approach needs to be that simple, that we love him and we just go into Jesus. Whatever Jesus got on the plan, that's what we're going with. It doesn't matter what we do. You know, we come in here, we set this side of time, and yes, in general, we have a loose schedule as far as, you know what, we're gonna eat breakfast on Saturday at such and such a time. It's probably gonna be a pound cake and a cinnamon roll because that seems to be the winner. Then we're going to come in here and then we're going to pray, or we're going to start singing, and then we're going to come into the teaching time. But we are not so bound by this tradition, by this man-made order, by this program, that when Jesus says, hey, I want you to come over here, that we say, hold on, we can't do that till 11:15. No. You know what? Some days we might not sing. Some days we might do nothing but sing. Some days whatever Jesus has, we want to be right there with him. It doesn't matter what else is going on. Leave the children alone. Let them come to me. Dirty face, dirty feet, you know, whatever it is.
Don't
let them come.
So many times people think that they have to get their act together, or they have to solve a problem before they can come to church.
Nope.
No. Come as you are.
That's it. Jesus will clean you up. Don't worry about it.
Nobody can do it on their own.
No.
Nobody. Jimmy used to say this all the time. No man or woman is an island.
How many times, you know, looking back, do you think he was talking to himself, reminding himself, shaking himself?
Yeah.
No man's an island, Jimmy.
Yeah.
No man's an island, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Hey, I have to remind myself of that, you know, my four no more. Hey, nope. That ain't how it's gonna be.
No.
That's not how it's gonna be. You gotta be out there. You gotta love God's people. You gotta let the little kids come. And that being said, you know, I've heard Daddy say this many a time. When you look at the gospel, there's usually three people in the gospel. There's Jesus, there's the disciple, and then there's the person who comes to him, right? That's the typical setup. Which one of those do we relate to? The sinner, yeah. Which one of those do we relate to in the new covenant? Well, there's only one that we can relate to in the new covenant, and that's the one who has the Holy Spirit dwelling in him. So that means we're the Jesus there, okay? We represent him. We're his ambassadors. We are to be Jesus with skin on to people, okay? That's not saying we are Jesus. Don't take that out of context. But when you relate to the gospel message, when you look in the story, the one that you're supposed to be like is not the sinner, is not the disciple.
It's Jesus.
It's Jesus. Now, the disciples had their undies in a bunch about the kids messing up their service. They don't understand. They can't do that. They're missing this and that. And Jesus said, leave them alone. Leave them alone. Let them come. Now, like everything in the Bible, there is a spiritual and there is a physical. You know what? A church that ain't got a baby crying or a kid running around is dead. It's dead in the water. You know what? That means that we're gonna have to deal with fingers in the nose, and we're gonna have to deal with kids that's got a million questions, and we're gonna have to rein them in. No. You know what? They might not have somebody reining them in at home. All they might have is a TV, and that's what shows them affection. They might not have a mama to put an arm around them.
Tell them that they love
Tell them that they love them, or man, that's neat, that's cool. Teach them how to go fishing. You know, I remember Matt talking about taking the boys fishing and when y'all went, and how one of them was just so excited to be fishing that he was, whoo, he was gone. He was running up and down everywhere with a fishing pole, about knocking everybody down, because he hadn't been fishing before. Didn't have a man to take him, to pour that into him. He's just excited. And yes, that, you know, for some people that grinds. No, we have to do it. No, let the children come. Let the children come. Now let's talk about the spiritual end of that. Spiritual end of that, you're going to have people in church that may be 40 years old, but they're still in Huggies. They're still youngins. And let me tell you something. The fingers up their nose and the dirty diapers and the mud on the face is going to grind on some people. Don't you know you can't do that? Let them come to me. Come here, let's get some spit on you. Let's love you. Let's bless you. Let's minister to you. Leave the little children alone. Let them come. Why? Because you know what? If you run them off, you'll never grow them up. If you run them off, you'll never grow them up. You might as well put a baby in a box and stick it outside in the elements. We're called to grow them up. We're called to grow up. Okay? Grow up. Get out of the Huggies. Come on now. Some of us need to at least be in training underwear by now. Don't forbid them, for such is the kingdom of heaven. He calls us his kids. Isn't that precious? I've seen some stuff Katie has done when she was, isn't that precious? Patty cakes. That is my favorite story of toddler Katie cooking at her kitchen. Came over there, she had a little frying pan. She's working that frying pan on that stove. And I look and there's a pair of underwear in there. Her little tiny princess underwear. What are you doing? Patty cake. Oh. Okay, carry on. Carry on. I'll let y'all figure out which adult she decided to bring that plate to. But anyway, because we all know how toddlers cooking, you gotta eat it. Nope. Anyway, isn't that precious? Isn't that precious? I understand how she got there. Was it a little flawed? Yes. Yes, it was. But isn't that precious? Isn't that precious? Now Home Skillet can cook a real pancake. She don't call them pancakes anymore, and I wish she did. But isn't that precious? It brings joy to me, even though she didn't quite have it right. I hope that when God looks back on my life sometimes when I ain't had it quite right, he just says, isn't that precious? They were trying. Isn't that precious?
Yeah, I was sitting in the parking lot waiting on her yesterday, and I'm watching people. I like watching people. And I see some really bad things going on. I'm going,
Yeah.
And I said, you know, how is God looking down from heaven going, looking at us, mankind as a whole going, bless your heart. Just don't get it sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I started equating things how he would see us.
Yeah.
It's like, look what I've done for y'all, and look how you're acting.
Yeah.
It's just sad how, you know, the masses are just.
But you know, Brother Andy, the world is blinded. It says they stumble and they don't even know what they're stumbling over.
That's true.
And unless we can shine the light
That's it.
on them, to them, and point them in the right direction. And here is the thing, you know, some, it's his, he says that it's not his will for any
to perish. None of them.
It is heartbreaking to me.
It is.
But, you know, I really believe, you know, we're going to be held accountable
Yeah.
for not trying to reach
That's
more
right.
and do more.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
I know I have missed opportunities. God forgive me. You know, and we, like I said earlier, you know, we tend to not put on our spiritual glasses, so to speak, and look at the spiritual, because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood.
No.
It's spiritual what we're dealing with.
That's right.
And there's so many people that are in bondage to Satan, to, you know, that we get in our feelings,
Yeah.
we get in our flesh, and we want to just zap them,
Yeah.
you know. But God is so merciful.
He is.
Speaking about that, you'd be surprised. A lot of people don't know how to take it because I don't want you to understand. And other people are so thankful when you say, have a blessed day. At the end of a transaction, you're fixing to walk
Yeah.
away from them.
Something
You know,
simple.
you paid your grocery bill or your at fast food at the window, you know, you just have a blessed day. And there's some that just go, just brighten up. Thank you, you know, thank you for that. And others go, yeah, okay. And I'm like, man, they just don't understand.
No, they don't.
You know, and it's,
You know what? They've never been given love or shown love, and they don't know how to receive it.
Yeah.
yeah.
They don't know how to receive good things.
Yeah.
All they have ever been exposed to is being taken advantage of,
Yep.
or the harshness of the world,
Yeah.
the world system.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You know, when somebody's nice,
they think, what's their angle?
Yep.
What
They're
are they really
suspicious.
trying to do? They're up to something. You know, they're suspicious.
but also me being that lost person when I was totally blind in that darkness, and I would have those seldom random moments where I did have a bypasser Christian that would say something good. Even though at the time I was like, look, just because it don't sink in right then, that could be something God uses.
See,
They can receive it later,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
That's right.
There you go.
That's right.
It's not in vain, is all I'm saying.
You know, I was scrolling Facebook yesterday, like most people do, and a story came across. And you know, there's all these stories on Facebook, and some of them's just more heartwarming than the others. And it was a mama composing a letter that her little girl had wanted to go, you know, I guess was interested in skateboarding. And she got her talked up enough to, well, let's go to the skate park. Let's go. Let's try. And how when they got there, it was nothing but a bunch of teenage boys out there on the skate park, and this mama with her one little tiny girl. And she's, you know, I can't because there's all these older boys. There's just boys, whatever. And the mama encouraged her, no, get out there. Go ahead, do it. She said, you know, and as a mama, she's holding back because she don't want her to be fearful, but she's uncomfortable. The little girl's uncomfortable, but the little girl wants to skateboard. And then a young man, 15, comes up to the little girl, and mama said she was prepared to go Mama Bear. Like, what's he doing? And he stoops down and he says, your feet are wrong. Can I help you? And apparently, as the story goes on, this boy spent several hours teaching her how to put her feet on the skateboard, telling her what areas to stay away from because it's dangerous because she's not experienced yet. Don't go near the rails. They're jumping and doing. Don't do that. But spent hours just working with this little girl and made her day. And this mama's heart was bubbling over in this thank you letter to whoever this young man may have been. And I think about that. You know, as Christians, when God puts people in our path, do we take the time to really say, can I help you in whatever they're going through in life? And you know, sometimes that's going to be correct, and hey, your feet are wrong. Your feet are wrong. Can I help you, show you the right way to put them so you're not going to fall? So you're not gonna get hurt by it. Stay away from that over there. That's a little more advanced. You ain't ready for that. Stay away from over there. Stay right here. Practice what I've taught you, and you're gonna be okay. Is that how he sees us when we take the time to let the little children come to Jesus, to help them out, to be Jesus with skin on to people, because he was moved with compassion. He saw people under this old covenant, and it says that he saw them as sheep without a shepherd. No one to take care of them. No one to help them. No one to jerk a head out of fence. No one to show them where the good water was. No one to take them from pasture to pasture. No one to be there when the enemy came. That's how he saw them, and it moved him with compassion. And he cast out devils, and he talked, and he healed. And whenever someone would say, "Hey, Jesus, can you come?" he turned and he went. It didn't matter. It caused him to lay himself down for a people that would crucify him, for a people that would spit on him, for a people that would mock him and ridicule him and really not pay it back. Let's just be real. He poured all this out for 3.5 years, and how many of them really started getting it? I mean, when he got to the cross, there was one man and 3 or 4 women out of all the hundreds that had followed him to start with.
But think about the lepers that he healed, and only
one was grateful.
Turned around and was grateful and thanked him. Only one. And that's today. You see the world today, and the majority are so unthankful and ungrateful and are so selfish. And you know, and that's the reason I guess he told us in the world, I mean in his word, to not grow weary in well-doing, because you do. There are times when you want to say, okay, I'm done.
If you do it again, no more.
I'm done.
You do it again, no more.
Yeah.
You do it again, I'm done. I'm not helping this next time. And then the next time comes up, and the heart is repentant. And the heart is repentant. And what do? 7 times 70. We forgive. We try to teach. Your feet ain't right. Let's straighten them out again. You wiped out on that board. Because that was the other part of the story. She wiped out several times, and he was there to, hey, brush it off. You're okay. Come on. Let's try again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. We can't grow weary. Does that mean that we're going to be able to fix everybody's problems? Nope. No, it don't. We can't fix everybody's problems, because everybody got a free will choice. But we are called to shoulder up with them, to teach, to love, to reprove, to edify, to be with them through the baby stage. Long nights and dirty diapers. Long nights and dirty diapers, boys and girls. To grow them up. To grow them up. Because that's what moved Jesus. He saw where they were. He saw the mess they were in. Nobody to take care of them. A baby can't take care of itself. A baby can't take care of itself. So Jesus stepped in. He did what he could. He poured himself out. And that's where we're called to be. Constantly advocating on loving God and loving people. Constantly. Look, this is all you got to do. Just love God and love people. And I'm probably going to call it, because I don't have enough time to get into this next section. With, it'd just be reading the scripture, and then I wouldn't get to talk about it. So we're not going to do that. But guys, we got to love people. We only love God as much as we love His creation. We only love God as much as we love His creation. We got to be moved by compassion. That doesn't mean that we ain't going to correct. We are a church that corrects. We do. Because you know what? I love my daughter, and I correct her all the time. I love her a whole bunch. much, and I don't want her to get into any real trouble. So when I see something that's causing a potential to cause a problem, I bring it up. We have to deal with it. We have to work through it. And with that correction comes training in how to avoid it. All right, you're doing this, it's going to lead to this. You need to do this. And as a church, when we love people, it has to be done out of love. We can't correct out of frustration or anger or anything else. We have to love, and we have to be moved by that compassion, and that's what has to move us to correction. But, all right, guys, tune in Monday night. I love you. God loves you. And there ain't a thing you can do about it. We'll see y'all Monday.